What's up, everyone? Welcome to my corner of the internet. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and this is Crossover Commerce, presented by PingPong Payments, the leading global payments provider helping sellers keep more of their hard-earned money. Hey everyone, welcome once again to another fantastic episode of Crossover Commerce. I'm your host, Ryan Cramer, and welcome to my corner of the internet. I like to say with an echo as everyone is here and listening to this podcast. Again, this is my corner of the internet where I bring the best and brightest Amazon and e-commerce experts in the space, whether it be logistics, product listing, marketing, you name it. We're going to be talking about it here on this podcast. So if you're a first-time listener or watcher, I appreciate you tuning in and stopping by this podcast. Again, this episode, as always, Crossover Commerce is presented by PingPong Payments. PingPong Payments helps e-commerce and Amazon sellers grow internationally, whether it be applying to your to a different marketplace, like a different marketplace, such as maybe you want to grow into Canada this year, or you want to expand in the UK. If you want to go into Germany, selling on Amazon or other marketplaces, how are you going to receive all those different international currencies? Well, there's actually a great way to do so. It's actually cost effective and it puts more money back into your pocket. That's with PingPong Payments. Also, paying out your supplier and manufacturer, super important to do instead of paying through the old ways of bank transfers or other technologies. They're outdated and cost a ton. Go ahead and use PingPong to cost effectively change your time, cut down on time, money, and effort when it comes to paying out your suppliers, manufacturers, VAs as well. So check out PingPong Payments. Go ahead and click and sign up for a free account today. It's in the comments section, or if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast location, I'm going to say location again because that was weird. Location, you can click it and check it out in the show notes below as well. That being said, this is episode 158, as alluded to earlier in our introduction. I'm lucky enough to have lots of people in the e-commerce space talk about the pros and cons of lots of different services in this space. Lots of the hot topic is going on, and we even saw some news earlier this week I can allude to that lots of different people in the space of aggregators are going to be, we call them aggregators, but when it comes to selling a brand in the space, that is the name that has been given to them. There's lots of different companies that are popping up. They want to operate the business. They want to be effective in the business. They want to take it to the next level. That being said, there's lots of different challenges that come with it. But we want to really highlight on this fact that there is lots of different ways to go about it, whether it be a broker, you can sell directly, you can actually effectively work with different kinds of companies to find out what is the value of your business. So that being said, we're going to talk about with friend of the show, Ben Leonard of Ecom Brokers, breaking down how to make your business more valuable and sellable, right? One needs to be value in order to make it sellable. So we're going to talk and break down in the capacity of what that means to Amazon sellers and e-commerce sellers as well. As a brand, you should definitely take notes as well. So welcome again back to the show, friend of podcast, Ben Leonard of Ecom Brokers. Ben, welcome. And let me go up there. Look at this, producing all in one. Welcome back to Crossover Commerce. What's going on, man?
Hey, man. Good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I know it's late over there in UK where you're in that area of the world, but so thanks for staying up late your time to listen and talk to all of our listeners who are really curious about the topic of, again, how do I make my brand more valuable and sellable? But before we get into the nitty gritty and kind of opening up the lid on everything, for people who didn't catch our first episode with each other, give us a quick brief history, your background. You were a seller. Now you're helping people kind of navigate the waters, if you will, in the space and help them become profitable.
Yeah. Thanks for the kind intro. Yes, I got into e-commerce in early 2016, late 2015, perhaps. My background before that was science. I'm an ecologist by trade, trained marine ecologist. I got quite sick and had to take some time off work and take a whole bunch of drugs, which meant I couldn't do my fitness hobbies. So I needed something to do, and I started a brand of fitness equipment, which it turned out I was pretty good at. And I was selling online. I grew that business over 3 and a bit years, and I sold it in late 2019. And at that time, we were doing about $6 million in sales. And it was actually Thrasio's, I think it was their second European acquisition and their first UK acquisition, if memory serves correctly. And I sold it through a broker. And that experience with that broker led to my accountant and I deciding that we could do a better job and putting our heads together to combine our skills. Allison, who has her own accountancy firm and looked after the accounts for that brand, which was called Beast Gear. And she's got about 20 years mergers and acquisitions experience and is a specialist e-commerce accountant. And I know how to run an e-commerce brand, build it from nothing, scale it, make it a valuable asset. And I'm still doing it now. So I still understand what it's like to be an e-commerce seller because I'm still building brands now because I love it. But it means that I can relate to the people that we're working with. And so we created Ecom Brokers to offer a better solution for e-commerce sellers to maximize the value of their business, plan their route to exit, and then sell it for the best possible price and the deal structure that suits them to the right buyer. And here I am.
Right. Well, I think that's interesting. I've never, I only know a few people actually, if you don't mind me asking, saying who they actually sold their business to. Is that a personal preference or is that actually public knowledge? Because I call it the aggregator space. There has to be a better name of it, like, because aggregator seems pretty dirty. We've kind of mentioned this in past episodes here earlier this week. It seems very dirty, like a cut and dry acquisition thing. But is that a common knowledge where people tell who they sold to, or is there pros and cons to that?
There are pros and cons. Thrasio used me in their PR. They've got videos of me saying that, I'm the owner of Beast Gear, or I was the owner of Beast Gear, and I sold my business to them. And I have a great relationship with them. So yeah, it's public knowledge. So I can't talk about ins and outs of the deal because of course that is under NDA. But
NDA,
I can say that that's who I sold the business to. And just to touch on the point you mentioned there about the whole calling it the aggregator space, I think this is one of the symptoms that's happening where people believe that when they sell their business, the only option is to sell it to an aggregator. Could be further from the truth. If you work with the right expert to find the right buyers or potential buyers for your business, you might sell it to an aggregator, and that's absolutely fine. But you might sell it to other private equity, like big boy private equity. You might sell it to family office. You might sell it to a competitor. You might sell it to a competitor who isn't really very online or not very online in your particular marketplace or country, and they want to get a bit more of a footprint there. There's a whole range. You might sell it to a private individual. There's a whole range of potential buyers. So it doesn't have to be an aggregator. So it's important that we don't just get stuck in this rut of only talking about the people that have raised a whole ton of money recently.
Right. I think that's a fantastic point. For the listener of this, we've had people who've been doing this actually for a long time instead of the past 2 years, right? You mentioned that it's not just the people who are raising money and acquiring brands, but there's actually businesses out there and people and companies who are acquiring SaaS solutions or e-commerce products or brands. There's this whole slew of different kind of under the radar companies that are operating and still acquiring, but it's not the flashy marketing. Hey, I raised $100 million, and yet there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a different path that a lot of people are actually being exposed to. And I think that's a very interesting point and take, is because there was that splash on the scene early in 2020 where you saw lots of money being raised, and then it was quickly like a bunch of different companies propping out, almost like not like weeds, but just quick growth quickly, like fast. And now we see a lot of year one anniversaries. There's lots of different fascinating takeaways and notes out there of, hey, we're acquiring still, we're still growing. Our three largest, or like multiple different large acquisitions are happening. We're raising even more money. But there's also that downward side to a lot of people are not talking about, which we can obviously hop into today. So that being said, so making a brand more profitable, valuable, there's kind of this unknown way of, how do I put number to something that is as arbitrary as a brand value or a name, but then also on what it could potentially become. For example, like you said, Beast Gear had so much equity on Amazon direct-to-consumer profiles. Sorry about that. Direct-to-consumer profiles. And then also, what are they looking for in terms of valuation? Is there kind of like this pretty consistent across the board, kinds of categories that people are looking into in terms of dictating what a valuable company is, or what they can put numbers to?
Yeah. Okay, so you've touched on a few things there. I think what might be helpful is to rewind a little bit and to talk about just the environment that or the things that people are going to be thinking about even before we talk about what makes the business valuable and sellable and who might want to buy it, which is just why sell your business. And actually, in a way, that's even the wrong question, because really it's about why make your business sellable, because ultimately one day you're probably going to sell, because if you've got a good business, that is, because there'll be people listening saying, yep, but I don't want to sell. That's fine, but you have to consider what might your mindset on that topic be in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, and how is the industry going to develop. And it's absolutely fine if you think you're not gonna sell, but one day you might wake up and say, actually, I'm gonna sell. And unfortunately, if you haven't made your business sellable, you now have a headache because you want to sell, but it's not in a sellable condition. But when we do think about why you might want to sell, even if that day isn't now, and you can't envision it being now, one day it's probably going to happen. It might be because you need the money, because you got a new project that you're very excited about, or to sail around the world. We're actually selling somebody's business right now who wants to sail around the world. It's pretty cool.
Good for them. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's very rare, but he wants to do that. He's actually already bought the boat. Or you wanna be a digital nomad, or not even a digital nomad. You just want to go live on the beach. I think that'd be pretty boring, but that might be what you want to do. Could be because you recognize your business has almost peaked and you want to get out now where you're still growing, but you haven't maxed out growth. It could just be that it's time to move on. You no longer have the get up and go in the mornings or the passion for your business, and it needs somebody or an organization who does have that to take it on, and you don't have the resources potentially to scale it. And it could be just that you recognize that you've got a good business which is in demand and that you can get decent money for it. So that's kind of the backdrop of why you might want to sell. And so when it comes to what makes your business sellable and valuable, there's quite a few things that we can talk about. Timing is really important. Before, your business needs to be growing, but not maxed out, right? You need to leave some meat on the bone for the potential buyer. The potential buyer wants to see that you've been enjoying some growth, and they want to get in on that, accelerate that growth. And if there's no meat left on the bone, then they're less likely to want to buy it, or it's not going to be as valuable. It might still be sellable. You might still sell it, but not for quite as much as you would have done. Is your business stable? There's lots of things that contribute to the stability of your business. For instance, are you selling in a risky niche? Some buyers will have a certain risk portfolio and will happily buy a business selling in a risky niche. For instance, certain types of supplements, and others will not, or they will, but they won't tolerate it so much. So the value to them is not as high. They won't pay as much. Have you been involved in any gray or black hat strategies? When it comes to selling your business, if an owner knows that is the case, they're less likely to A, want to buy it, or B, they're going to buy it for a lower price. So it reduces the value of your business. What about the transferability, right? That's part of the stability, I guess. How transferable is the business? If you were to fall down the stairs and break your legs and end up in hospital tomorrow, would your business run? If the answer is no, then you don't have a very transferable business when it comes to selling it either. So work needs to be done to put it into a position such that it can be transferred and you can hand over the keys. And then another one, I suppose, on the stability aspect is documentation. Whether it's everything from your accounts, and you wouldn't believe the state of some accounts we look at, right? The business on the outside looks phenomenal. The products look great. The photography is wonderful. The website's smooth and slick. The social media is insane. And you look at the accounts and it's a mess. So are your accounts not a mess? That's important, right? What about your intellectual property? Have you got good records of that? What's your documentation like there? Whether it's your patents or your trademarks, your registered designs. And how about systems and processes? And that links back to the transferability I mentioned before. So those types of things, and there's plenty more we can talk about if you want, help to make the business sellable and valuable.
Right. And I think I think what a lot of brands are starting to, or I should say more people in the space who are acquiring businesses, they're looking at a couple different things. I actually think it's completely shifted in terms of mindset, right? A lot of people are like, I only want sales and history on Amazon. I don't want to have to deal with anything off of Amazon, which I always found super fascinating. Maybe I'm reading into this incorrectly. Is it fascinating to the point of that they're saying that so that there is that quote unquote meat on the bone, so that they can build a direct-to-consumer business. They can build out that omni-channel presence. They can maybe put in different marketplaces in different countries. Obviously, Amazon is now in 20 different countries, just launched in Egypt. So there's lots of different opportunities out there. But you're saying if a brand is almost so successful where it's in 5 or 6 or 7 different, marketplaces, it has all these different things going for it, it almost doesn't become as valuable of an asset for someone to buy it to grow it later on down the road, because there is stuff for it to do, but there's not as much or as easy wins and low-hanging fruit that you can potentially win. Is that a cynical side to look at, or is that an actuality that mindset have shifted of all Amazon sales or 90% of the sales are coming from Amazon, but now it's actually like, I want to do like 60-40 or almost maybe like 50-50 even.
So there's multiple different avenues that can spin off in. So let me just pick one right to begin with. Thrasio formed in 2018, September 2018, and shortly afterwards, especially early 2020, a whole bunch of more people raised a ton of money to acquire e-commerce businesses, particularly those using the Amazon FBA channel. And so for the majority of them, particularly when they started, they didn't like the complexity of anything that wasn't Amazon FBA. Straightforward, goes from the supplier, maybe goes into a 3PL, but more often than not, straight into the Amazon warehouse, done. And they didn't have the capability to deal with 3PLs, D2C websites, whether they're built in Shopify or Magento or whatever it is. And those things sometimes would have put them off a deal. However, more and more of them are getting more capable. They've made more hires of the right talent required to run more complex businesses. And so these guys are a little bit more savvy when it comes to that. And many of them have changed their deal criteria from wanting, upwards of 90% on Amazon FBA, and actually sometimes just buying a business and then just shutting down the D2C side completely because they just didn't know what they were doing, unless it was completely automated and fulfilled through Amazon very easily. More and more of them now are very happy to look at quite a large proportion not on Amazon. If we're talking about the aggregators and the new wave of aggregators that we've seen. With regards to the point you made about having enough meat on the bone, certainly when it comes to the aggregators, they're going to want to see that there are easy wins for them. So for instance, if you've got a brand in the US and it hasn't yet been taken into Europe, particularly the UK, just because it's the same language, it's a very easy win for them to bring it over, the reviews port over, get some inventory into the UK and then Europe, and they can very quickly get some growth. So there's tons of meat on the bone there. And that goes vice versa. It goes for a brand that's in the UK but hasn't yet exploited Europe, etc., particularly through all of Amazon's channels. But you mentioned there this potential scenario where you've got a brand that has already maxed out all these potential opportunities on these platforms.
Right.
First of all, I guess reasonably likely there's still some more opportunities out there, whether it's adding more products and selling more products to the same people, or simply adding more resources to the marketing to drive more sales through the D2C channels. But at this point, if we're talking about an enormous brand that is exploiting, North America, Europe extremely well, there's still opportunities now to go into Amazon in the Middle East. Egypt's there, United Arab Emirates is there, and then further afield in Australia as well. But at this point, we might be dealing with a brand that actually isn't going to be sold to an aggregator, a financial buyer, but it's going to go to more of a strategic purchase to big boy private equity or a group of a fund which owns multiple brands and is looking for a strategic purchase to add a particular type of brand to its portfolio. And that's when we're, that's a different kettle of fish from what most of, I think, our listeners will be dealing with at the moment.
Yeah, well, and you brought a good point, because as you know, a lot of people are just saying, again, it's not naivety. It's a moment of, I don't know what options are available to me, and that exists in any sort of business world, right? Of what comes with opportunity comes with somewhat knowing your options available. So let's take you had talked about, a different kind of avenue of not just, 50, 70 different companies that call themselves a business or an Amazon brand acquirer, if you will, to put it in nice words, as like a very nice term. There has been, this notion has always been around for a long time, right? There's been brands that have been acquired by, again, private equity money. And there's a distinction in line that I always hear. Is a certain level of, you think there's a lot of money being pumped into this ecosystem right now. Wait until private equity, the phrase always comes from, wait until private equity money comes into play. Now, I'm kind of naive in that scale, but I want to think that it's going to be a lot larger pocketbooks, a lot bigger systems in place, or people or companies in place that can actually absorb the capabilities and then actually effectively run them without blinking an eye. Is that kind of the difference between private equity versus a company scaling quickly? Hey, we built third-party brands, and then then we're going to build this team from the ground up quickly, effectively, and efficiently?
I think you're right, because what's happening is a lot of the aggregators, and just for the avoidance of doubt, when we talk about aggregators, we're talking about organizations formed in probably in the last 18 months that are growing rapidly, flying by the seat of their pants, have raised a ton of money. To be honest, 80% of them are not going to succeed. Because they know how to raise money, but they know diddly squat about e-commerce.
Is there a threshold, like just a quick pan real quick? Is there a threshold that can make you instantly think that they're not going to succeed? Is it the amount of quote unquote money raised, or is there something that's already in the tea leaves that you can read? They're not probably going to last long.
It's not the amount of money raised, because there are people who haven't raised very much money, but their strategy is right because they're cutting their cloth according to how much money they've raised. Right?
Sure.
And they're flying under the radar. There's some little guys, I really like them. They're flying under the radar. They're picking up small deals, and they're taking that approach. But there's others.
Small, steady approach. Yeah. Got it.
Slow and steady wins the race, and they're being sensible, and they're actually hiring some decent talent. There's others who haven't raised very much money, but they're trying to go big and compete with the big boys, and they can't do it. And they're floundering. They're trying to merge with each other, and they're not going to succeed. And they're struggling to hire the talent. And the talent doesn't want to work for them. The talent wants to build their own brand and then sell it, right? That's one of the problems that some of these guys have. And then you've got others that are not sure whether they're going big or going home, and they've kind of raised middling amounts of money, and it remains to be seen how they're going to do. To come back to your point, though, about the real private equity, as it were.
Money's money, no matter how you raise it, but it's people who've done it in different capacities.
Yeah, the more mature, shall we say? It's a lot more mature, and I think they have better operational chops when it comes to this, and kind of those who are rapidly growing, flying by the seat of their pants, don't necessarily have the operational chops to do this. Which is really why, if you do sell to those guys, that your deal needs to be tight, so you don't get screwed when the earnout goes all wrong because they've missed your earnout targets because they don't have the operational chops to run your brand properly. So that's why your deal needs to be really tight.
Right.
And so when this does happen, when a whole bunch of the new aggregators fail, and we see more traditional private equity coming in, I think it's going to be good for sellers, because we're going to see a maturation in the mergers and acquisitions process in this industry. Because right now there's some, I would say we're in a new Wild West. People spoke about the Wild West of third parties selling on Amazon in like 2014, 15, 16 kind of days. When you were allowed to, every review on Amazon, at the bottom of the review, it said, I wrote this review in exchange for a free product.
Rankings ranking your product. There was always a new strategy, and everyone was integrated. And how do I rank my product quickly, effectively? Oh, giveaways, coupons, 100% giveaway. I've heard it all.
And those were the Wild West days. Well, we're in a new Wild West, M&A and e-commerce, where, frankly, there's some interesting things going on, which we can talk about if you want.
Yeah, let's dive into it, because I think, like you said, my fascination with this part of industry, not just the people who are working for it. Again, we saw, even just of note, I'm going to give my quick hitter. I always want to, I'm a big social listener. If you are a friend of the show, or if you're a listener, you will know that I am a big social listener. I like to observe what's going on. I like to put feelers out there and then understand kind of at a whole what's going on. What's really fascinating, there's lots of things happen literally in the last 48 hours, 72 hours or so. You lost a CEO of a major aggregator I won't name names, but you can actually co-CEO, excuse me. You lost one of those individuals. So the head of your organization that built this from the ground up, major one, I'm talking just to narrow down top 5 in terms of money raised. You see talent being acquired at an incredible rate. There's constant, all these jobs, brand managers, all these kinds of things are happening. But then you also see bigger names starting to enter the place that have ran multiple e-commerce. For example, I think I saw the former VP of technology or VP of operations or something like that came over from Goop to one of those, which is ran by Gwyneth Paltrow, and now is running operations or technologies over at one of the other aggregators. So again, lots of different things are happening. But again, it's only happened in the last less than 2 years in the space. So lots of growing pains, lots of things are happening, not just to them, but also just like every other Amazon seller, right? That they're going through problems and such. So let's talk about those kinds of new, I forget how you phrased it, the new kind of things that's happening.
Caveat, right? Before I talk about this, I like the aggregators. I work with them every day, and selling to an aggregator is absolutely fine, provided you take your business through the right process to find a pool of the right buyers and maximize the value of your business, and don't give it away for what they tell you it's worth.
Very good point.
So just that's the backdrop, right?
Right. We're just looking, we're reading between the lines, and I agree.
Like
it's just very much a good thing for our
and I don't
business.
necessarily blame them for any of the things that I'm about to mention. I think it's just a symptom of an immature industry, okay? But suppose you're Bob, right? And you're Bob, and you're running your business, and you're working with a PPC agency, and you go to you're having your monthly meeting with your PPC agency guy, and you say, I'm thinking about selling. And the PPC agency guy says, "Oh, great, Bob. Talk to Dave the aggregator. He'll look after you." Well, great. It's a recommendation from the PPC guy who you trust, who's run your PPC really well. You go talk to Dave. Dave dangles what looks like a really pretty big carrot in front of you for your business. Possibly the biggest carrot you've ever seen, the biggest carrot that you ever dreamed of having, right? And so you take his offer and you exchange your business for his carrot. What you don't know, what you didn't realize, is 2 things. One is your business is not worth a carrot. Your business is worth a whole sack of carrots. And 2
a bushel.
A bushel of carrots. Absolutely.
That's the word we're looking for.
The PPC guy who referred you to Dave has just been given 50 grand by Dave the aggregator, which you didn't know. And that 50 grand, by the way, you paid it. It came out of what you would have got paid for your business. You would have got a carrot plus 50 grand. And so you now know that your PPC agent wasn't working in your best interests. He was working in his own best interests. He wanted 50 grand. And rather than saying to you, well, actually, what you should do, Bob, is take your business through a process to understand what is the true value of your business, prepare it for sale, and then market it to a pool of the right buyers such that you get the best possible deal. That would have been the right thing to do. And actually, if he'd thought about it, the PPC guy could have still got a commission on that. It might not have been 50 grand straight up front, but it would have been a commission, and his client would have had the best experience. There's a similar situation going on now where instead of giving the PPC guy 50 grand, he's getting a car. So
we had one of them. We had those people on earlier this week.
I can refer my friend to somebody, and I know he's going to get a less good deal because he's dealing with them directly, and he's going to pay for me to have a car, but he doesn't really know he's paying for me to have a car, So those are just a couple of examples, and so mom and pop businesses, people who've worked incredibly hard on their business for possibly years, crying down the phone to tell a report at 3 a.m. You know what it's like in e-commerce, putting out fires left, right, and center. Somebody dangles this carrot in front of them that they think, great, I put blood, sweat, and tears into this business, and now I'm going to get a good chunk of money for it. Well, your business is worth way more. And what you didn't know was that the person referring you to them didn't have your best interests at heart. And so this is just some of the stuff that's going on at the moment, which is interesting, and it doesn't happen in more mature industries. Put it that way.
Right. I want to add on to that in the caveat of, this has always been some sort of, there's always been in business some sort of program where people speak on your behalf. It's called referral marketing or performance-based marketing. The dirty term is affiliate-based marketing. Again, I worked in the industry. I've done it on direct to consumer. I've done it in SaaS. I've done it to a lot of different things. People will go to bat for a software solution product, no matter what it is. And it's easy to track it. Whether it's a coupon code, a link, or whatever it might be, or just like an introduction email. It could be as simple as that, where that XYZ, there's in the background, a referral-based agreement, whether it's a percentage of sale. It could be, like you said, a car. It could be the scalable feature of no matter what their exit at, you get a percentage of that. There's lots of different things that you can get, even like discounted products, like in the world of business that exist in lots of different levels. So it's not unique to this one area. I think it is deceptive if you are going into this situation, like you had mentioned, as a brand owner, and I go to my PPC expert and I know for a fact that, hey, who should I go with? And, oh yeah, go directly to XYZ because of, like, they're going to be the best. Now, best is, again, it's an opinionated phrase at that moment because there's other incentives in the background. It's not a bad thing, but people are not forthright in terms of, like you said, that 50 grand is coming out of their pocket, it's going into their pocket. It's all kind of that ecosystem. So, what's kind of the take on the best way to do it, right? Or what's the most protected way to do it? Like referral person wins still. Seller actually wins more. They get to keep more. They actually know the value based of their business.
So just to touch on what you said there, really good point. And so some people listening will be saying, "Oh, it's okay because my PPC guy actually told me about like these 6 different people." The problem there is it's a bit better. Like they haven't sent you just a one, right? But so you now potentially, if you've got a good business, you potentially got a little bit of a competitive environment going on. Problem there is still that you're going to pay for your PPC guy's car or the 50 grand or 70 grand or whatever he's going to get. It's going to come out of your what they would have paid you for your business. The other problem there is you're still not taking your business through the proper process to plan your exit and maximize the value of it, which we can touch on in a minute, which is all related to how you calculate the value of it when you're understanding your SDE, your seller's discretionary earnings, or your EBITDA, if we're going to talk about that. But to answer your question on what you do then, if you're not going to go with whoever your PPC guy sends you to. So in response to the problems of going direct to a buyer, where you're going to end up with a poor offer and deal structure that doesn't suit you, but suits them entirely, and it's really hard work to do on your own anyway. Some other models emerged. We saw the emergence of generic listing services where you can flip your business online. This tends to result in a lower valuation because they're working at a grand scale with a lot of sellers and not particularly doing much work. And I experienced this service myself, not particularly doing much work other than pulling some reports out of your Amazon account and deciding that your business is worth X based on the average of all the businesses they've sold recently. So not really digging in to understand your business and doing the analysis to figure out how they can actually make appropriate adjustments to maximize the value of your business and then market it to a pool of the right buyers other than just kind of putting it on their eBay of businesses. So that emerged and it's not great. In response to that, we've seen the emergence of consultants who attract your interest because they charge a pretty low fee, 4 or 5%. Unfortunately, they also don't tend to do a lot of work. It is usually a case of they email a lot of people, 70 to 100 aggregators usually, and also take a referral fee. So again, not much happening to maximize the value of your business, and you're going to end up working directly with a buyer anyway. So in response to that, we've seen the emergence of marketplaces, which sound really great because they don't have any fees. You don't have to pay fees. The buyer will pay the fees. You're paying the fees. When the buyer pays the fee, they're just knocking it off what you would have got paid. And again, you end up working directly with the buyer. So the answer to all of those not very good solutions is to work with a qualified expert, such as happens in mature industries all over the world and has happened for decades. And ideally, these needs to be experienced individuals who have experience on all sides of the equation. So business owners, e-commerce brand builders, mergers and acquisitions experts, and accountants who will not flip your business, but will take the time to carefully and considerately sell your business to the right buyer on a timeline that suits you and in a way that suits you, such as, what do you want? Do you want to sell 100%? Do you want to retain some equity? Do you want to be a consultant? Do you want to do an equity role? Do you want to have as much upfront as possible with no earnout? Or do you want to have a bit of an earnout because you can see where it's going and you want to continue advising on that growth? Whoever you work with, they need to work with you on that basis to help prepare your business for sale and get it built to sell. And they need to carefully organize and understand the numbers to maximize your seller's discretionary earnings, which is usually in e-commerce the basis on which a business is valued. And they need to add value. So basically the work that they do needs to pay for the fee that they take, which is typically commission-based. And then they need to position the business properly and market it to pull the right buyers, not just list it on a website. And then structure the deal to suit you. So that's the solution to the pitfalls of those other things that we mentioned.
Right. Well, I mean, again, it makes most sense because a lot of people are told, again, I think it's the wrong thing to do if people are saying, yeah, don't worry about shopping around. Like, again, a car, like we're talking about your asset. You want to actually be able to look around and see who's going to give you the best chance. Obviously the marketability, it's in terms of like working with real estate or working with any sort of asset. You want to work with somebody who has that pool of people that they can come to them, work for them, have that ability to get you the best terms based upon what the seller is wanting to do, right? If I have this asset, what do I want out of it? Like you mentioned, if it's a flat earnout, if it's an earnings, quote unquote, earnout over time, a year or two, whatever that those terms are, or again, just having the ability to somewhat have this buy-in feature, which I've always never really quite understood that a quote aggregator would want to do, of have a piece of the pie, but not the whole pie, if you will. It's either a cut or dry aspect. A lot of things kind of stand out to me with each of them, and I've heard both good and bad of lots of different things. One, all cash earnouts, depending on who you are. It's like the lottery, right? How do you want to get paid out for this value that someone put on? You can earn more over time as something. You can actually earn more if you take it in increments over time and then hit different bonuses over time, right? You're not paying as much taxes, so on and so forth. You can actually, quote, have more in your pocket and earn out more if something performs at a higher level. The negative side of that is that you're entrusting this ability of a company who's less than 2 years old to actually grow that opportunity in the way that you are doing that. And it's all forecasted, right? I've heard bad things where people have not, it's not on the aggregator at that point to do anything but just operate it. It's actually might be better if they didn't operate it as efficiently as maybe if they wanted to ultimately by themselves. Again, I'm not saying businesses are doing that, but I've heard that, people just don't foresee something happening, or they don't do something where they know it's going to be a problem. They stock out for 30 days and then all of a sudden you're up shit's creek, for lack of a better term, and you no longer have the ability to make those earnouts for quarterly earnings.
And I hear those horror stories about people who say to themselves, it's hilarious, actually. Well, it would be hilarious if it wasn't so sad that this happens to people. And it saddens me when people, they put their heart and soul into their business, and then they let it go for way less than it's worth. And then they get screwed on the earnout because the contract's not tight enough, because they went alone. And so we're happy to spend money on a PPC expert. We're happy to spend money on a photographer, a videographer, an IP attorney to get our trademarks done, translations, keyword research, etc. But then when it comes to our most valuable asset, we fall for this trick of deal with us directly and avoid the broker fee, but then lose tons of money on this awful deal that is completely skewed in our favor. So for instance, you miss an earnout target, or they actually miss the earnout target. They're the ones running the business now by, $10, and you've lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is why your earnout structure needs to be tight. So if an earnout target is missed, there is a safety net below it, right? So, you didn't hit that target, So instead of getting 250 grand, you're going to get 200 grand, or you didn't miss that target, you're going to get 100. You get the idea. In addition, you need to remember that, Bob in supply chain at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon probably cares less about whether you're going to be in stock next week than you do, because you've got 250 grand riding on it and he doesn't. Therefore, part of the deal that needs to be negotiated, and again, this works when you have an M&A attorney and a good broker working with you on this, is that you will get read-only access to wherever they're selling your brand. So you can flag these things up before they become an issue, because you care more than Bob in supply chain.
Right, you're checking in your account, or you can look and see,
you can
hey, inventory levels.
Have you thought about this? Have you noticed that this? Have you checked with supplier XYZ that this is going to be in on time? Maybe we need to bring this in by air instead of sea. That type of thing. Or what about, another way you can protect yourself is that it's written into the contract that if they go out of stock on a certain product or products, plural, for more than a particular amount of time, say a week in any 30-day period, you get your earnout. And that way you're protected if they screw it up.
I like that.
As I said before, right? 80% of these guys are going to fail. And many of them, they just don't know about how to run an e-commerce brand. And the ones who, some of them are smart. They know they don't know. So they're actually outsourcing it to decent agencies who do know. But nonetheless.
So, I was going to say with Ben, some of these earnouts, again, they could be across a couple of years or so. It's a little concerning. If I were a brand, I would want, and I'm selling my business, that forecast of, hey, we're going to be around. This is with anything, right? Of a subscription-based service, or you're going to have it for a value of perceived over time. That's if that business exists over that period of time. I hate to ask the question. If I sold my brand to a business that happens to go down that road, they don't operate effectively, and they just like shut the doors or whatever that looks like, does that actually effectively affect me as a seller in my earnouts, or are they legally tied to something of the nature? Like how can we protect people in that regards?
It's tough. In many cases, you're kind of screwed. However, what can be done is some form of insurance can be in place on both sides of the deal. So for the seller and the buyer, and in addition, it could be that you are able to get actually the earnout underwritten.
Almost like a protection clause of, hey, if they go bankrupt or anything, or the deal falls through in that amount of time, you would essentially get a protection.
Yes. Yeah, basically. To be honest, with regards to us, we tend to, you never know what's going to happen, but when we're presenting a business to a pool of the right buyers, we're focusing on those who, A, they're not all necessarily aggregators, as I mentioned at the top of the show.
Right.
But B, it's those who actually we have confidence have the chops to run the thing. So if, they might specialize, we might be selling a pet brand, and this organization specializes in pet brands, and we wouldn't dream of selling it to somebody who is an expert in arts and crafts, right?
Right.
That type of thing. So that gives us confidence that they're going to be fine. In addition, if you do lack confidence in that potential buyer, A, that's a red flag not to sell to them, and B, you are getting way more upfront, so that in the event that it does all go tits up, to use a British phrase, you're not going to be completely screwed in terms of the earnout.
Right. So that being said, there's one of those, and then I'll cash out all in the beginning. Again, if you're, going back to my lottery reference, if you're in the United States, you can get an all cash up front. You don't have that payout earnout, but again, you're paying more theoretically in taxes, and you're getting less. So of that potential cap, you're maybe getting 70% of it instead of 90% of it in theory.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the short-term, long-term risk versus reward of how much do you actually want out of it. So for maximizing that potentiality, what are like the top maybe like 3 things that people are, again, I always hear clean books. I hear keeping your, more meat on the bone, like we talked about earlier. What are those other like maybe low hanging fruit that if I'm ready to go to a market, whether it's a aggregator or it's a smaller based business, and I'm going to approach you with Ecom brokers, what are those things that you're going to look at it and say like, hey, you hit the top 3 or 5 things, like this is going to be good for you. Like it's only going to get better from here. So what are those things?
Intellectual property is vital. Buyers want to know that they are not going to, when they sell your products, they're not infringing on anyone else's intellectual property and no one else is infringing on theirs. Or if somebody does, the trademarks exist and stand up. That's really, really important. The other thing, and this is something that we do when we're working with sellers, is this. The due diligence process is intense. And rightly so, right? Somebody's going to give you quite a lot of money for your business, more than quite a lot of money in many cases. And therefore, they're going to leave no stone unturned when they do their due diligence. And that's absolutely fair enough. I remember going through due diligence for my first exit. I thought someone was going to come to my house and scan my retinas. And so what we do is we get our sellers a head start on that process so that everything is neat and tidy and organized. Every stone has already been unturned. And we can really neatly present it with a ribbon on top to the buyer or the potential buyer when they're doing their due diligence. This helps in several ways. First of all, it makes the seller's life easier and they feel more prepared. Second of all, it makes the buyer's life easier. The whole thing's a lot smoother. They're not constantly chasing for certain documents or certain pieces of information. And if there is anything that we have to kind of disclose, and this is important, right? When you're selling your business, you have to be entirely honest and upfront. And if there's anything that needs to be disclosed, like, hey, once I had a product suspended because I didn't have the right safety certification, something like that. And it ranges from that, which is fairly innocent, to because you got the right certification, everything was fine, done, fixed, to nasty black hat stuff, right?
Right, I was going to say,
right?
I think, the one thing I've heard recently, and I think Chris McCabe of eCommerce Chris actually mentioned a lot, is how are people in the likelihood of an acquisition, how likely is your business going to be potentially attacked, whether it's a BSR of top 10, which most people hopefully, and that is where you're at if you're going to get the most bang for your buck. But how likely are you to be attacked, or have you been attacked in the past for those tactics? And I think that's a super interesting thing of the risk proposition of putting money into something that might be as risky as being attacked by other third-party sellers or bad actors or anything like that. Again, hopefully that's not the case, but there's a risk tolerance there.
Yeah. So just to kind of round off the last bit and then start this bit. So when we have to disclose anything, if we've made everything neat and tidy, really presentable with a ribbon on top, made their life easier, they're way less likely to push back during that period or try to negotiate a discount on something or whatever, because their life is way easier. The whole process is smoother. Everything looks a lot more professional and presentable, right? So that's really important. And to come to your point that Chris made, it's a double-edged sword. The more successful your brand, the more likely it is that you're going to get attacked in some way. And therefore one might think, well, if that's happening, people are not really going to want to buy my business. But people buying businesses in this space understand that they're buying businesses in this space, and they know and they recognize that that is a reality of what happens in this space, right? So let me give you an example. My brand was subject to black hat attacks because we were successful.
Right.
But after a lot of badgering, I got my brand gated so that no one else could sell my brand. People could sell it as used, and once in a blue moon on every private label listing, somebody decides that they bought your I don't know, they bought your calculator new, and they don't like it for whatever reason. They're just going to list it back on there as used, and then it's gone within a day or two. That's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to, after a lot of black hat attacks, Amazon gated my brand so that only I could sell it as new, because I was able to demonstrate that there was no supply chain distribution outside of my business, right? We didn't sell wholesale, and we manufactured our products through our manufacturers. And so we got our brand gated. And actually, so then this was the interesting thing. Getting attacked by black hatters, which led to us getting gated, actually gave an extra level of protection around the brand and made our brand more sellable and valuable.
That's a good thing, right? I think there's lots. Yeah, that in itself that's a plus in that column too. So like you said, yeah, there can be good things that come from it, but it's the lack of foundation to get to where you and your team did. Of
Yep.
Hey, it's been attacked before. We figured it out. Shouldn't be a problem again. ... Well, did you actually fix the problem, or is it open to potentiality of it being attacked again?
And the good news is that generally speaking, Amazon is getting, and if we're talking about Amazon in particular, right, Amazon is getting way better at dealing with these issues. And things like hijackings are far less common now. And when they do occur, they get shut down much faster because the situation has evolved and Amazon's understanding of it is better and their processes of dealing with it better. And as I mentioned, the buyers in this space kind of know what they're getting into, right? But the flip side of that is if you have been involved in anything. So whatever you do, don't do black hat stuff because you're going to have to disclose it one day when it comes to selling your business. And you can try and get away with not disclosing it, but I would not recommend that. You really must not do that.
So yeah, what would be those? I was going to say, Ben, yeah, what are those things like for a person who's maybe not naive, but they haven't come across yet? What
Buying
are those
reviews?
Okay.
Buying negative reviews.
Anything with like a ranking or like a ranking solution?
Ranking and review manipulation.
Right.
Don't do those things. Especially, right? It might be possible to, you might be able to do it and get away with it. And you got away with it because you didn't get caught. And so then there's no trail. But ultimately, if you get caught and then you have flags on your account, when they're doing their due diligence with their access to your account and they see these flags and your account health isn't very good, they're not going to be particularly impressed.
Sounds like a childhood, like, yeah, we're going back to our childhood of, hey, you could do this, but if you get caught, there's going to be serious consequences.
Yeah, and consequences potentially if it kills the deal to the tune of millions of pounds or dollars. So that would suck. So don't do it.
I mean, I think this is a very, very fair and honest point. Like there was a world where people, again, we talked about the Wild West days. This is going to be very, like, I'm connecting very loose dots here. Those happened in the past. Is there something like of that capacity that's happening right now in the Wild West of business acquisition? Like, what should a seller be wary about if they hear these things or see these phrases, or they come back with something that maybe isn't right? Like again, do you see where I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to.
I'll just tell you straight up what's happening, right? So aggregators will find you because they're scraping Amazon for sellers. So even if they're not remotely interested in your business, you probably get an email from them telling you how wonderful your business is. And that's going to be fantastic because you've only recently been banging your head off a brick wall trying to get someone in sales support to fix your problem, and now someone wants to give you quite a lot of money for your business. A whole carrot, perhaps, to use the term we were using before. And they're then gonna, so you're extremely flattered and it seems wonderful, and they're going to ask you to send over your P&L and various bits of your data, and then they're going to come back and tell you what your business is worth. That's not how it works. You take your business through a process with the right experts to deeply understand your data and deeply understand your business and how it works, and maximize the value of it by making the right adjustments and add backs to maximize your SDE. And I realize we haven't even spoken about adjustments and add backs. And then you market it to a pool of the right buyers. And then they can make an offer based on what your business is truly worth. And then you can negotiate a deal structure that suits you and not them. Mm-hmm. Red flags are things like work with us and avoid the broker fee. That's code for please don't work with an expert who's going to maximize the value of your business and arrange a competitive environment where we have to bid for your business amongst a pool of other buyers. That means hand over your business for as little as we want to give you for it. Those are the main red flags. The work that a competent broker will do to appropriately calculate what your business is truly worth will pay for their fee multiple times over. Yeah. And that's the moral of that story, I think.
In the pro of that too, I'm going to speak on behalf of these businesses I don't work for. Again, the pro to working with a broker too if you haven't been sold on the listener yet already, knowing somebody who can competently put numbers on paper and say like all the different valuations, it actually makes the job for a aggregator that much easier in terms of due diligence and actually know the valuation of a company. Of I don't have to overpay for a business. I know the true value of it, and I'm not just shooting in the dark. It makes my job a lot easier. It makes my I look a lot better. And across the board, if I just have to outbid somebody a little bit, I know I'm not grossly overpaying. Maybe I just have to do restructuring of terms a little bit more. I think it actually benefits people, although they don't want to pay more. It benefits you long term to know that the brand itself is going to be a legitimate
and this
business.
This is why they don't hate us, because people watching this will be like, oh, God, they must hate you. But actually, they don't. And I get on great with them because I make their lives easier. Because here's the thing. Suppose they buy your business for directly from you or from a broker, regardless, right? Doesn't matter. They bought your business. Let's just pretend they bought it for 3x. The moment they bought it, it's worth way more than a 3x multiple because they've just rolled it into their wider portfolio. Therefore, they can well afford to pay you what it is really worth when you take it through a process, whether that's 3.5 or 4x, whatever, and when you've got an appropriately calculated SDE, right? Because they're still going to make a huge profit or gain on your business, the moment the deal is done, because they've just rolled it up, let alone after they've grown it some more and then sold it down the line. So they can well afford to pay you what it's really worth after you've taken it through a process. Secondly, when they work with us, we are bringing them businesses that, as you said, we have made neat and tidy by taking through our process. We have vetted them. We have we've audited the business for them and made their life in due diligence that much easier. And the person on the acquisitions team looks really good to all their colleagues because they're like, check out this wonderful business that I found. Whereas, their usual process of scraping Amazon and contacting every Tom, Dick, and Harry results in a lot of crappy businesses that they look at briefly and then turn down. So that's why actually they like us.
Sorry, I'm thinking about like you're speaking to everything that I've always said about this, Ben, and that's just the valuation of a business. Again, so I don't want to think a lot of people naive. Like I said, you went through this process. You actually inevitably found that there is this way of getting more for it. And I don't know if you had buyer's remorse or anything like that. Is it just that simple of working with competent people, knowing that they're going to be beneficial for you? They're looking out for your best interest. They know the people who are maybe competent enough or knowledgeable enough to know what the value of a true business or brand is. Because again, it's not just with 60 names out there with the name aggregator. There's all this kinds of opportunity. I guess the point I'm getting at is, people need to be worried about multiple different things in terms of like, hey, if I don't do it now, I'm not going to get like a ridiculous over gross pay. Like, again, if my carrot is actually worth $2 million again, or my carrot is actually worth $5 million, I'd rather them pay me $5 million. So in theory, this bubble, if you will, is I want somebody to overpay for me. Do we see that coming back to earth like pretty quickly, and that you're going to see this mad dash to exit businesses as quickly as possible? Or do you think people are just going to kind of ride the waves and hopefully say, my value is my value? Like, that's it.
Yeah,
like
you hit the nail on the head. My value is my value. So there are people who are wrongly, in my opinion, rushing to exit because they are concerned that this bubble is going to burst. This bubble may burst, or it may go in waves, or we might see an enormous shift when a whole bunch of these guys fail and big boy private equity comes in. But regardless of what happens, if you have built a brand, a suite of products which serves a particular group of people, and it is a sustainable brand, and you're not just selling random stuff, then there will be a buyer for it because it has value, regardless of the noise that's going on in this space. So if that's you, and you've got a great business that you stand behind and you have faith in, if you're ready to sell now, that's fine. If you're ready to sell in 6 months, that's fine. if you just want to understand what your business is worth now, so you can then reverse engineer a route to exit, that is the best thing to do. And don't just rush to sell now because of all the noise that's going on. Your business is your business, and it will sell to the right buyer when the time is right. And so just to touch on what I just said before, that's the best thing that anyone can do, right? Even if they think they never want to sell, or even if they're just unsure and they don't know, is work with a competent expert now to find out what the business is worth. So you can say, okay, here's my reference point. It's worth X. Actually, I want to sell it for Y. What are the steps we need to take to get there? Because otherwise, it's like orienteering without a map and a compass. You don't know what the hell's going on.
I don't know what that means, but I think I understand what you're getting at.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Orienteering. No, I get it. Now I know we've already ran out of time, and I could talk about this for multiple hours. And I know we have something kind of a roundtable coming up again for those who haven't asked our questions, or people who obviously want to get to the bottom of like what's going on with their brand, or maybe just want to explore it for the first time, or really just get your insight. Ben, what are those ways to connect with you, and how do we go about doing that?
Sure. You can get me on LinkedIn. Just search my name, Ben Leonard. You can email me, ben@ecombrokers.co.uk. And if you want to get a free ebook about how to prepare your business for sale, you can go to ecombrokers.co.uk/ebook. Otherwise, just head over to our website, which is ecombrokers.co.uk. It's a UK domain because that's where we are, but it's a small world. We're talking over the Atlantic Ocean right now. So we work with sellers all over the world. So, yep, we're here to help.
That's right. Well, I mean, of course, great insight as always, and I would talk hours after this, but friend of the show, of course, and we'll have to do part 3, 4, 5, 6. Like every month, we're gonna have to check in and see like what's new with going on in the space, and have to. I know it's crazy, but hey, again, since we last saw you, congratulations on the newborn. Fantastic stuff as always. So again, I know craziness going on over there as always, but are you doing any events? Are you going outside or speaking at anything upcoming?
I'm not doing as much as I would have done if it weren't for the new kiddo. I was hoping to get down to Seller Sessions Live in London next month, but I'm not going to go. I'm speaking at AmaFest in the UK, but that's not till March next year.
Wow.
I am speaking. Oh, stupid me. Tomorrow, I'm speaking at the ClickBox Summit.
That's right. With Augustus Kliggis and his team over at Orange Click.
I'm speaking tomorrow at the ClickBox Summit. And for now, that's it. There's something possibly in the pipeline coming up, but I can't tell you what it is yet because we haven't confirmed it. But when we do, I will sing it from the rooftops.
Fingers crossed, and then we'll make sure we share that with our audience as always. Ben, thank you so much again for hopping on again, friend of the show on Crossover Commerce as always. Ben Leonard of Ecom Brokers, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you. And then again, everyone else who tuned in live or is now listening to us, we appreciate you as always for tuning into Crossover Commerce. Again, this is episode 158. Lots of great tidbits on how to maximize your business. Again, keeping an ear and eye to the pulse of e-commerce and Amazon. That's kind of what I love to do with my audience and my listeners. And of course, everyone in the space, you should always be knowledgeable about what's going on, who you should be working with. But then also, again, it's not my place, but it's also our place to educate on practices that have best affected services like ours or businesses like ours. And then also, help grow your business. Ultimately, the more options you have, the better. But as entrepreneurs, knowing if you do want to exit, there's options available. Don't do it alone. Do it with people who have done it before, who have trusted people in the space, who have helped people get more value out of their business. Of course, you want to invest in those kinds of opportunities. And the biggest asset that you might ever have, why not go into or work with somebody like that? So of course, again, Crossover Commerce presented by PingPong Payments. Go ahead and check out more about PingPong below in the comment section. Thank you again, Ben Leonard of Ecom Brokers. You can check him out in the comment section. All of his social links, as well as his website, is in the show notes and comment section below. Check him out, reach out, tell him Crossover Commerce sent you. That being said, Crossover Commerce, again, we'll go live tomorrow. We're actually speaking with Seller Sessions founder himself, Danny McMillan. I'm going to go ahead and just advertise it really quickly right there. He'll be on live tomorrow, Friday, which is Friday U.S. time. Again, we'll We'll be talking about what to know about Amazon's A9 algorithm and kind of pick his brain a little bit about what's going on in the space from here. It's a really heavy UK week this week. I did not plan that, but it so happened to be that way. Again, e-commerce is a globalized industry. We don't discriminate where you. We're going to find you if you have great knowledge and insights to tell you, the listener, about. That being said, again, this was episode 158 of Crossover Commerce. We'll catch you guys next time. Take care.